welcome to the Kimberley IT podcast. This is show 67. Myself, James Kimberley, the founder of Kimberley IT, with Kyle, co-founder, and we are joined by Richard De Vere, who is the director of the AntiSocial Engineer Limited. How are you doing, Richard?
Not bad. Thank you for that nice intro.
But before we move on, let's just give us a quick recap overview of what the AntiSocial Engineer is and does.
Okay, so when we started, we wanted to tick off the niche of social engineering. We didn't want it to be a side offering. We didn't want it to be a security company, another security company that also does some social engineering. We thought the market was expanding enough and could support a fully fledged social engineering business just specializing in these areas. So that's kind of what we built. And over the past 5 years, we've been kind of hard at it, improving services and meeting some of the needs for clients in their social engineering space. So it's strange, it's niche, it's diverse, but I think now it's becoming less niche. I think everyone's starting to talk about social engineering and phishing now, especially. So yeah, that's what we do, and we try and work with clients to improve their defenses against social engineering in many guises, whether it's training, testing, sometimes donning a silly outfit and breaking into somewhere. So yeah, never a dull day.
Fantastic stuff. I look forward to we'll talk about that a bit later on in the podcast and find out more about which team you're on, the red or the blue team, attacker or defender.
If only security was that simple. Red or
pills, James.
Pardon, Carl?
Is that a reference to Matrix pills? Is it red and blue? Is that
no. In hacking, you have a red team and a blue team.
Okay.
The blue team's the defending team, and the red team's the attacking team.
You see, every time you learn something new, I knew the white and black hat, but that was a Matrix reference for me. But there you go. Thank you, James.
Now you've learnt that, forget it because it's nonsense, and we'll talk about after why. But we'll go on to that, surely.
Thank you very much.
Super. So let's do our recap of the past fortnight. So we're getting Pixel 4As. Well, I've got my Pixel 4A.
You are.
Which is the latest one. Carl, I don't know what's happened with Carl's, but it's literally the most fantastic phone I've ever used. It's something like, what was it, £350, and it's running the latest Android 11. It's a Google one, so it gets all the updates. But the camera is by far the best camera I've ever used on a mobile phone. And that's not because the lens is that great. It's to do with the image processing that takes place afterwards on board on the actual phone. So it's not sending the picture over to Google servers, it's doing it on board on the phone. So it's all staying local. But the photos are just incredible. Highly recommend it. And we're actually going to advise that to all our clients now going forward when they want an Android phone, go for the Pixel 4a just because it's got a great price, good phone, and it's got the security updates that you're going to need for the next few years anyway. I think it's about 4 or 5 years Google supports the phone for before you then need to go and get a new one. But what's happened with yours, Carl? Has yours been delayed or what?
No idea, James. I bought it, 2 weeks ago, and then it's stuck on order processing, and then I got a refund the other day. So I've had money back, and it still says order processing available until 20th of October. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens. They've got another offer on later on in the month. If I buy it, I get a free something. So if it does turn out I'm not getting it, I'll buy it again later in the month and get the freebie that's coming.
That's happened because it's out of stock and they don't know when the next shipment's coming in.
Yeah. Well, you said it was likely that they've probably sold out. It's interesting, James. The thing you mentioned that's you really enjoy is the camera. And to me, I'm not a photographer, so the camera for me is literally snapping stuff and snapping my kids, and I'm quite happy with the quality of snaps I get of my kids. So for me, it's not as much. But you said to me, Carl, you can operate it really easily in one hand, and that jumped straight off the plate to me as good, because that is, I don't know, juggling my phone in one hand when it's not quite wide enough when I'm with the girls at the swimming baths or whatever. Bingo. That means a lot to me about using it with one hand.
What are you carrying, Richard? Do you do Android or iPhone or?
Pretty much an iPhone fanboy. I'll put my hands up really early in this conversation and say I do support Google. I'm on your side on that. When it comes to hardware, always Apple, unfortunately.
What size of phone have you got, Richard?
Currently in the phablet size, big old branded. It's strong point, yeah.
I was going to suggest I found an easy way of upgrading the size of your screen this weekend, and that's to put your readers on. Put your reading glasses on, and bingo, you suddenly get a bigger screen right in front of you for no cost at all. It's excellent.
It also works from to making it HD as well. The same philosophy. Put glasses on.
Yeah.
The screen becomes more HD.
James, you'll enjoy this now. When I want to read my phone at night in bed before I go to bed, I can't do it without readers on now.
Oh boy.
No, we all get to the age where they become less optional and more needed hardware.
That's it.
This is the next one on our recap. Was we had a teaser last week that there will be a big announcement about G Suite this week, and it's just happened like 20 minutes before we've gone live on this podcast. So G Suite has now been renamed to Google Workspace, and there's a couple of different packages there as well. So we're having to rebrand all our stuff later today from G Suite to Google Workspace, being a Google partner. So that's going to take a bit of time. But
quick question: you guys are Google experts. Like I've noticed, like everything's Google and G Suite, and that makes sense in my opinion. But what is with the renaming stuff? Why can't they just leave it? Because I want to use Google services, but every time you go, it's called something different, or they've dropped a functionality, or something that worked 2008, like 18, doesn't work now. You want to record a webinar, well, that's brilliant, but the record button doesn't work because that's now Google Chat, Google Meet, and then you got like killed by Google, and it seems to be a bit of a habit. Maybe it's just a move fast and break things company, but
G Suite's only been G Suite, or whatever you want to call it, has only been renamed 4 times. So that's quite good for Google.
Yeah.
Some might say that recently Microsoft have changed the name. Office 365 no longer exists.
Yep, it's Microsoft
365, but I bet you it's called Office 365 forever. But it doesn't exist anymore. So they're the same. Yeah. Who knows, Richard, what is inside the minds of the people in these corporations who decide, let's do a rebranding exercise? I don't know. Leveraged by somebody who likes to rebrand stuff and make some money doing it.
I sort of agree with the rebranding on G Suite, though, because originally it was called Google Apps, and that was before the iPhone came out and before it had apps. So after the iPhone came out and apps became commonplace, you referred to Google Apps and people thought you were talking about the apps from Google that you'd install on your phone. They didn't think it was a competitor to Microsoft Office. And then they changed it to G Suite, which I guess was a play on the idea of Office Suite. And now Workspace just says it straight out, Google Workspace, and it's got the Google branding, and everything's going with the Google. They don't seem to have a branding now that doesn't have the word Google in front of it anymore.
Well, that's
the reason they've changed it.
Some of the branding concerns you've probably got, you're going to have to change logos and websites. We have the same, where we've purchased, I think, like Offices 365 is ours. So like they had Office 365 and we have to register Offices 365. So we're going to have to keep up with that and register a whole.
You've got Offices365.com.
It's Offices 365. I'll have a check. I'll get back to you, but it's something very similar.
That's close.
We've got like FBC. What was it? FBCDN is one of my favorite ones. So like
Facebook Content Delivery Network.
Content Delivery Network. We've got the .co.uk for that. I think they've got the .com. So
I take it.
It's always keeping up with them and seeing services change names and being able to get in there with domains as well.
Is that so that you can craft phishing links that look very much like the original?
That's the one. I'm literally, now you've mentioned it, I can't let it sit. I might forget it. I'm currently like I'm up in the registrar looking for Microsoft 365 domain. So yeah, carry on.
Yeah.
So you got, and then Carl, you went and visited a client in the past fortnight that we hadn't seen since before lockdown.
Yeah, it's been rare we go and see anybody, obviously with the COVID, so we've been working away. But one of our clients, Orb Creative, they have moved out of WeWork in Birmingham. WeWork wasn't really working out for them. It's beautiful downstairs in WeWork, but when you go upstairs, it's actually very sort of dull and mediocre and generic.
One of the problems was they couldn't do social distancing in the WeWork.
Yeah. I mean, they had a few issues there. WeWork were not really doing what they wanted. So they've moved themselves down the road to Bristol Road by the Edgbaston Cricket Ground, where they used to be, into a nice building that's there. And I went down them to see them, and they don't have any good Wi-Fi. They've taken this building on. It used to belong to a company that was responsible for the retail sector. So obviously they've downsized a bit recently, and it's got old school Wi-Fi in it, and it doesn't really work very well. And I'm going to go down there, do a site survey, get them some new Wi-Fi in. And this was actually cropping up this morning, James, just a topic that's cropping up now. We're seeing people in new offices spend money on cabling. It's one of the most expensive things you can put in, and you don't need it. I've just said to one of our customers this morning, you don't need any cabling per person. Think about it. Laptop and Google Voice, no network cable required, no desk phone. All you need are electrical sockets. Now, those, you need more of them than you ever thought you needed. 2 won't cut it anymore. You need more like 8 to 16, you know, so have a look at some pop-ups at the desk. But it's interesting, James, when I went down to see Orb again, like you guys need to focus on Wi-Fi and then that's it. You're set in this building. That's the most important thing.
Definitely, definitely. How about you, Richard? Any highlights in the last 2 weeks that you've been up to?
We have been absolutely deep in work. So won't drop what we've been doing, but we've been focusing on CEO fraud and kind of impersonations.
Yep.
So imagine you're a very large company that wants to consider your risks to CEO fraud. You've gone through all the policy stages. You've kind of done what you can from a belt and braces kind of policy tick box perspective. We've been testing some of that. So real life, what actually happens. So quite an interesting campaign, but constantly kind of changing up. We've also been doing little gadgets. There's a blog to come on that one, building a DVR system, a CCTV system,
yep.
but from scratch with a very niche set of requirements that we'll cover in the blog. But it's, we've been soldering, we've been doing stuff.
Oh, I like that. I like the sound of someone soldering. That sounds ace.
It's, you have to be a master of a lot of trades or jack of a lot of trades, whichever way you want to turn it. But literally 1 minute like over the past fortnight, I've been letting a soldering iron cool down, jumping onto something else, sending some invoices, doing bits and bats. So it's absolutely been pretty frantic. Never a quiet week, unfortunately. You know when you're trying to grow a small business, you always dream for that busy day. You always dream for the 50-hour week full of work. That dream, after a couple of years of doing that, you kind of wish that you didn't, or you kind of wish that you had a bit of more time. I'm sure we can relate with that feeling. But we've been busy is the least of it.
Good news. Anyway, should we get, as we're just talking about security and CCTV, that kind of links into our first news article, which is the Ring's so Ring is owned by Amazon. It's their latest security camera, which is a drone that flies around inside your house if you decide to put it in your house. So they had Amazon recently had a big new product launch day. I don't know what they actually call their launch night or whatever it is, but the one that caught my eye was the drone, and I know it caught your eye as well, Richard, as you mentioned it too.
Yeah,
quite cool applications for that we thought of.
Well, I'm currently under a bit of a Twitter break at the moment, just to delegate some of the workload and kind of ease some of the attention. But when you see stuff and your eyes light up, I think the little boy in me was like flying drone, patrol the house. I had visions of like fitting a little Lego man to the top of it, and you just turn to Twitter. And there's the predictable pattern of InfoSec kind of dumping on things. A flying drone around my house. I couldn't think of anything more dystopian and scary. And you kind of think, well, come on, really? You got the Facebook app on your phone, that's listening to you.
Exactly.
I'm going to listen to you. I don't know. And you've got to really, at the very early steps of technology, you've got to think that, 20 years time, it is going to be flying cars and replicators, and we're going to be 3D printing pancakes for breakfast, right? That's a curve we can't fight. That's been set off years ago. So that curve is going to continue to grow, and somewhere along that path between flying cars and 3D printed pancakes for breakfast, we are going to have flying security guard drones, right? It's just logical, and it seems to be that InfoSec just instantly dump on this. And I think let's spin it round, hang about. We've got, let's start with an Alexa, something we can kind of relate to. It is going to be like a flying Alexa with a lens, doing some different tasks. Yeah. And I think we've got the choice. We have got the choice. Number one, do you want this or do you not want this? And, this isn't the government knocking on your door telling you have to have one. This is going to be a product that you can choose to have. So first of all, like anyone that's concerned about flying drones in the house, probably don't buy one. Secondly, let's think about the benefits of that. You're patrolling your house, you're keeping things secure. I'm not sure about yourselves, but if I was playing the role of a burglar and I'd just gone through some doors, the person's away at work, brilliant, I'm burgling the house, and there's a flying drone in my face, I might be thinking twice about my next 10 minutes, you know what I mean? So,
especially when someone's modded it with a BB gun or something on it.
well,
James.
BB guns are very heavy, if it's very...
Taser.
So I was going to go for something probably fire-based, piezoelectric and kind of igniter, flamethrower kind of stuff. But, yeah, I'm sure we can let us imaginations run wild with it. But I think ultimately, let's not look over the benefit, let's not look past the benefits that it could bring. And I guess we all go as white males, dare I say it, we all focus on the security or the coolness or the flamethrower we can attach to it. But let's think about, disabled people that might have had a fall, a patrol 4 times around the house to make sure everyone's up and well. People are, not on the floor, passed out, there's so many different benefits, especially with kind of COVID and let's say not being able to do that physical inspection. The elderly relative example is a really good one because, you're being told literally to kind of to decline on contact and to socially distance. But sometimes it's quite nice to know if your relative's laid on a floor or not. And the drone could tick that box. So,
there's a big cost saving there as well. Rather than having a Nest camera installed in every single room, a fixed Nest camera, you just need the drone to navigate. So saving yourself on a lot of cameras. If you can't afford to have cameras in each room, you just get a Ring drone and let it fly around.
It's logical, James, because not only that reason there you've given, you don't need to manufacture as many cameras. You don't need to maybe have some electrical cabling on some cameras. I know you can do them with battery. All of those things are negated by having one drone that can move around inside the house. If you've got OCD, I thought, did I turn the cooker off? Right, well, you can solve that problem now. And there's loads of people that have little anxiety disorders where it's super common. It helps those people. Yeah, tinfoil hat wearing people need to get a grip. The government can't get track and trace in a spreadsheet, so there's no way in the world they could ever try and watch what I'm doing in my house. And you know what? If you do watch what I'm doing in your house, it's your business. I do consider, I have a cat, and I've always had cats, and if that drone's not flying too high, my cat will have it. My cat will go for that drone and take it down. So that'd be quite interesting how many cats take down the drones and either break them or get broken paws. I don't know. It depends on what the fans are like, I suppose, on the drone.
I'd like to think that somewhere in Amazon's whole research development pipeline that they've factored in small pets even, be really bad PR, wouldn't it, to come home from work and it's tangled up with your pet. Kind of.
Definitely, my cats would go for it. They any fly or anything like that in the house, and they start changing. They're 20 years old, and they'll go for it. So it doesn't age out of cats. It's what they do.
I love you.
2025, we could probably get this kind of I was thinking of some kind of belt system for the cat. Like a patrol. We can upgrade the cyber cat. We can have a little belt on there, a little sensor, some lidars up on its head. It could also do the same job as a drone, maybe a bit more effective, who knows? Or it might sleep all day, probably the latter.
I loved your idea about having the Lego man on top of it, because
you've got to do it.
With this drone, as we spoke pre-show, I want to put them inside clients' offices so we can, if they have a problem with a cable or something like that, we can fly the drone and have a look and see what's going on. But what I will need to do now is get a customized Kimberly IT Lego piece wearing a Kimberly IT hoodie, branded, to sit on top of the drone as it flies out. That would be fantastic, going around the client's office supporting them with that drone.
Oh, children grow up, but they don't, do they? Really? No. It's become men. Fantastic. I love that. Yeah, I can't wait for one.
Next story we've got is about, we all know this being in IT, that too many staff have too higher access privileges in their work account for no good reason. So it's in this survey, it was around 40% of staff in British and American corporations have access to sensitive data that they don't need to complete their jobs, according to recent research. So we all know that in the vast majority of companies, that people know the admin passwords. They use a basic admin password for everything. Everyone's got it. It's shared around. Some people have privileges that are set way too high. And it's a big threat for businesses. I bet you see that all the time, Richard, when you're doing an attack.
literally, social engineering simplified is just abusing the inherent authority and permission that's been granted to someone kind of legitimately in a nefarious way. So basically, in layman's terms, if you've got a new starter and you've given them access to everything on the whole share, they can access every file in Drive, then you've shot yourself in the foot massively, because later on, if a social engineer, you know, kind of me in an assessment, or a kind of criminal out there in the wild picks on that person, and they're going to try and get that access. If this person is in marketing and they can access their company Twitter account and maybe a marketing drive, then the social engineer is going to be left with that. That is the access they can steal. But if they've been given over access to many systems that they don't need, or there's no barriers on there, then yeah, it's carte blanche. You've took that kind of like access and authority, and you've just used it elsewhere. So I think that the big kind of turning point, we've known about access control since the 1970s. Let's not get this wrong. There's a blog on our website that basically covers the history of pen testing. And up in 1970, they were really defining access controls and user permissions, right? But jump forward to recently, I think it was the Twitter incident that really hit home how much access people have. And then I think every company in the world went, oh, terrible of Twitter to let their engineering staff have access to the accounts. Terrible. And then every business really didn't want to talk about their own setup, where they're probably doing far worse. And
one of the ones that really bugs me is actually with G Suite, when you do a vanilla install, and which quite a lot of businesses have self-installed, it will do. A service called Google Takeout is turned on by default. And Google Takeout lets any user go in and download everything they have access to and take it away. And I have no idea why Google has that turned on as a default service when you do a vanilla install. So whenever we move someone to G Suite, we always turn that service off. It's like, we don't want that turned on. We want that off. And it's only for like a special organizational unit that has access to that when it's needed. But it's things like that. So it's not even always down to the user. It's just the way the packages come. It's the reason why you need to get experts like yourselves and us to go in there to sort the package out so it's at the right security levels and right access levels for your business and your needs.
And it's an absolute minefield sometimes. Yep. You got all these settings on different devices and different accounts, and yeah.
I understood that article had reference as well to IT professionals, and that they have too much access. There was an element of that in there as well. There was a quote where someone said, I run always as non-admin. I don't run as admin. We elevate for this. I've worked with, when I was consulting, I've worked with companies up to 250 users in manufacturing in the UK. And yeah, the IT guy got access to everything, and he knows it, and he loved it, and enjoyed it. And then I had the MD going, what can he see? Well, everything. He's got the keys to the lot, you know. What the finances, the payroll, yeah, everything. They won't be that until you change it.
And the thing is, when you're an admin guy, it's that one where if you walk around for a ladder, you can get in anywhere. It's also, if you're an IT guy, you can ask anyone for their password and they'll just give it you.
I do feel a bit seen with this conversation. Many of my working days are just asking people for the password and playing an IT guy.
It's like the assumption, we get it often with clients and end users who've forgotten their password, is that they have an assumption that we've got a document with all their passwords in. So can you tell me my password again? No, we can't, because we don't keep your password. We give you a temporary password. Once you've logged in, you've changed it. So no, we can't give you a password again. We'll have to do a password reset for you. But it's just I always find it highly frustrating how people just don't care. I call it's the new drunk driving, poor password management, because once someone's got your password, especially if they break into your email, it's not just your data that you're giving them away. It's all the other data that they're essentially custodians of for other people. So I might have sent somebody, a friend, say I sent someone an email about a diagnostics I've had from a doctor's or something like that. That's sitting in their email account, and if they don't protect it, then my information gets out because I've given them that data. It's kind of it'd be silly of me to do that in the first place. I wouldn't do it, but a normal user may do that, isn't aware. But people forget that their password is actually protecting a lot of other people, not just their own stuff.
It's the first thing we do after if we compromise a mailbox in a simulation, it's the first thing we actually do. We look for the words password reset. And then you can see just a whole spider of different services linking to that. searching for words like that, just lay them out for you. Literally searching a mailbox for the word password is scary. I recommend everyone do that now. Go to your mailbox, type in the word password, and that's it as well. Put it in brackets, whatever, and just look to see how many things reference. And it's that old banking service that isn't even linked up to this anymore that just spirals up, honestly. But you're right.
Your work sounds like too much fun, Richard. If I was 20 years plus younger now and I was listening to this, I'd be straight up trying to get hold of you for internship. I can work for free. It sounds like loads of fun. I used to love this stuff in IT when you had the opportunity to show a company where the vulnerabilities were, the top people were on you. Yeah, let's do it. And you go to town and you see it all, and you don't do it out of glee and joy. You want to help them. You want to say, look, you're so vulnerable, and here's this and that, and so much fun doing it when you see what people leave. And you can help them learn. So, yeah, I get that totally.
The ego's gone now as well. You know, when you start off in this job, you end up like, I'm Superman, I can make anything. And then you realise a lot of things are actually broken. And you're not as empowered as what you think you are. But, yeah, an interesting job, innit? So, yeah. It just, I want to put in perspective, the balance to it being the best job in IT and all the rest of it is I'm 34. Look at me. I look about 40. You know, and that is receding hairlines. You know, this is the job that you signed up for, and the fun's still there. Yeah, the fun's still there.
That's the classic, Richard, isn't it? What do you do? Oh, I work in IT or computers. Oh, you must be all right. Do all right for yourself. Easy that, and you feel like saying no. Now, this job grinds at times. It has long hours. Have you been under a desk covered in crud? Have you been up in the ceiling and had the furry monster that's in the lagging get round your head and make you itch for a week? James hasn't done any of that stuff, I don't think, but I had to do all that crud for years.
I did that at the Moseley Exchange, actually, installing their Wi-Fi.
Oh, did you? I did send you up ladders that day, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and I got a lot of bloody, what I thought at the time might be asbestos dump on me, but luckily it wasn't.
This is the real front lines as well. This is the front lines of tech that we hands up completely avoid. So we don't do any cabling, any infrastructure, no networks. We won't put a Wi-Fi point in. And I respect for that, because that's the real front lines, isn't it? When it comes to
I used to do it, Richard. We don't anymore. We have a great guy who comes and does all that physical installation work for us. That's what he does. Yeah.
Very posh.
I've paid my dues. I did many a year of grunt work. That's for sure.
The only time we get caught out, which luckily doesn't happen anymore because clients don't have offices to go into, it's when they have offices and they decide to do a move everyone around into different positions, and you turn up, everyone's in a different position, and no one's plugged in their cables incorrectly and all that stuff, and you end up having to climb and go underneath the desks. Worst job in the world, especially if you've got desktops down there that are venting hot air out at you as well.
And of course, this is all disappearing right now. That era is ending right now.
No, I'm so happy about that.
More security in the news. More security.
Yeah, we've got another one. So this is Android. So Google, as we know, Android, every so often, there's a big news story about bad apps that are on the App Store. So what Google's doing is they're forming a Android security team, and this is to find bugs in sensitive apps. So at the moment, they have an Android security team that works with apps, but it only works with apps that have got something like I can't remember if it's 10 million users or 1 billion users there, and they'll work with those apps to secure them. But this one is they'll now work with any app that's a sensitive app and work with the development team behind that to find holes and stuff like that and patch the holes and help them out. And that's just starting. The team hasn't been formed yet. It's just from a LinkedIn advert that's been published that searching for somebody to come and form this team at Google. So it looks like they want to really start securing these smaller apps.
I've just got a bit of a Google search to do on the back of that, but I remember attending a conference. It was in Belgium called BrewCon. So it's like a security-themed conference. And one of the researchers there, his talk was entitled, basically what it was about, it was taking Android devices out of the box. So completely stock. You got a complete range of Android devices, took them out of the box and got root via these apps. Yeah. And it's like, you see it, let's not slate Android, you see it on Windows, but it Candy Crush in an enterprise solution. Why? But you're seeing it on Android phones, pre-installed apps, skipping out, some of them are even skipping out the kind of Play Store as well and just being side-loaded on in the factory. And it's, you know, not to name and shame, but there is certain companies that are, less inclined to test this. Let's say I'd say the new Pixel 4s that you mentioned, was it 4As? They're probably safer than a stock kind of third brand.
It's not libelous. This isn't libelous if it's true.
It's not, well, they Google, let's say, like it always used to be the same with the Nexus devices. The Nexus devices were a bit better, a bit more tested. But when you start going out into the subsidized market, so I'm sure a lot of Android phones are subsidized because there's a later advantage to doing so. Pre-installed with Facebook, it might knock £2-3 off the retail price, and
pre-installed and locked in as well, so you can't even remove the app.
Yeah, which, come on, I felt that was Apple that has the walled garden. Android shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff at all, and you should be able to uninstall every app and have ownership of that as well. But yeah, it's just the fact it's good for them to be thinking about it as well, because there's a lot of stuff coming from Google. Even they're even securing iOS devices, which I love. And you look at Project Zero and stuff and all their kind of security teams. There's some very, very talented people that it can't be a bad thing to get them into testing more apps and stuff. So really good news.
Yeah, they may be able to go back to their do no evil.
Yeah.
They may be able to return to that direction.
That went a long time ago. I don't think that's coming back.
Well, I don't think it'll ever come back officially, James, but they've had their ups and downs in moments in their behavior, but some aspects of that company, on one side, the company is like really full of the right thing to do. And then he's probably battling against the fact that it is a corporate and has to have a board and make profits. And those two things butt heads all the time.
Well, the next topic is one of our favorites. It's about the Queen of Carnage, by how the register refers to Dido Harding. So Dido Harding was the CEO of TalkTalk when they had their big hack, and she's now somehow got herself promoted to being head of the test and trace team. And as soon as she becomes the head, all of a sudden they have a problem with 16,000 COVID reports and a dodgy Excel spreadsheet that got announced yesterday. Yeah,
she's the woman people love to hate.
Yeah,
I get this. Like, I get asked a lot, like, why Dido Harding? And I think it's important as well, really early on in the conversation, to point out her name is actually Baroness Dido Harding, which starts to paint the picture of a few ties that she has. And back in the day, we uncovered the TalkTalk breach. So we were the nerds on the phone ranting. You've got a big problem. We basically. They had a domain, or they had the .net domain. TalkTalk did, and it was the relic of Tiscali kind of infrastructure. Yeah. One day I kind of found something, and a virus alert triggered on my device, and I was kind of like, I'm getting a virus alert from a 404 page from TalkTalk.net. What's going on here? And we literally just loaded up a dictionary with all the different subdomains possible. So we did a bit of a brute force attack on, we say attack, it's passive through DNS. But just comparing, is help.talktalk.net a real domain? Is calculator.talktalk.net a real domain? And we found a list of domains, and it just kept, the AV was just firing up. And we looked into this, and it was ridden. It was absolutely ridden with web shells, PHP backdoors. We found all sorts. So we get on the phone, we're hassling, and yeah, it was a bit of a felt sick moment. So I always remember the day, and it was about 11 o'clock. We made probably the last of these phone calls. It turned into literal begging letters like, you have a big problem, please do this. TalkTalk actually rang us back to inquire about our website. They wanted to help us fix our website. And I was saying, no, it's your website. This went back and forth. We got through to the right person. And literally, she refers to being briefed and then rushing to the news. 2 hours later, she's giving a talk. We had quite a week that week. And yeah. I switched off. I left the computer. I remember going to my mum's, and she's always a listener of World Service. And I walked into my mum's, and I'm saying, "Oh, busy week, Jesus, you won't believe the story, BBC World Service. Dido Harding has reported a breach of TalkTalk, and I was like, I went white. I literally went white. And it seems to be the media. The media hate this woman. The media think she's not there on the terminal. She's not making big changes. And I've gone full circle. I'm going to hands up. I'm going to say it, right? Kind of, she's a stern woman, so I'm naturally inclined to like that. But she is the perfect face for systems like this. She's well connected. She speaks in that tone of voice. She's proper, demure, all these kind of terms you could put to her. But it doesn't come as a surprise that they've put her in charge of test and trace. She's got relevant experience. And look, is it going well? In my opinion, it's not going well. But is she going to roll out the speech? And it's all going to be very proper. And I think it was Buzz Lightyear come out with the great philosophy of falling with style. This is a woman, you could put her in charge of Jesus crash testing chocolate cars, and she would fall with style. And I think that's why she's in the role she is. As much as
she's got a title from Falling with Style. Then
falling with style through a very privileged tree.
I still like the Queen of Carnage that the Register call her. Fantastic name.
I would say the issue with people like her is similar to Premier League football managers. When a Premier League football manager is sacked because they had terrible results, they go into the bin of spare managers. Big club loses a manager. Who do we go to? And then there's only a few available, and they just get another job. They don't have to be any good. They're just like, well, there isn't anyone else. And that's what she is. She's one of those go-to people that gets the job for whatever reason. Connection, probably. Has done some stuff before. It's a cycle that never ends until someone else comes up the path of the public school system and then takes over.
There's a lot of truth in that. It might sound like a bunch of guys like having a stab there, but there is a lot of truth in what you've just said. Private school with Cameron, old class buddies, and it goes on and on and on. Honestly,
you try and break into that, Richard, as well. If you break into that and you've got as much money as you want, and you send your children to Harrow, as soon as they get to Harrow, they're going to say, "Oh, where did your father go?" So if you didn't go to Harrow, then you're out. Well, and if you did. Well, did your grandfather go? No. Then you're out. Man, you need to go back as far as Boris. He goes back to royalty. That's about as damn far. No wonder he's prime minister. Yeah, you are screwed in this country because everything is class-based. I know a little rant, James, on it, but everything is class-based and about money and class and not about racism. And a lot of people, woke people, need to wake up, woke people. It ain't about colour. It's about class and money. When you get that in your head, then something might make a difference. But
Kyle, I love you. I think you've just ticked off so much confusion, and it is about class. And here's the weird thing as well. You can pick your class to an extent. Obviously, you can't be ruling class because that's genetic, but you can pick your class, and you can become what class you want to be with enough kind of effort. There's a system, there's a framework, there's a policy. You can just look at middle class, upper class, lower class. You want to be lower class, then brilliant. You need a job. You need to, do certain things. There's a framework there for class, but you're right in a lot of this. It's where the classes join with with IT security and IT problems. We wouldn't. Yeah, it's fair to say the whole test and trace and talk to an extent. There's a lot of things to pick out in hindsight. Yeah, but it's a lot easier once you've had a parliamentary inquiry. But yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Final news story is yours, Carl. It's about home working here to stay. We've spoken a lot about this, so you found this story. Tell us about it.
Yes, it is a survey with the Institute of Directors. Now, the Institute of Directors tends to be mostly made up of people who run companies that are probably from 1 to 300 employees. We're not talking about the corporate sector here. We're mostly talking about the businesses that make up the majority of this country and its GDP through business. And 1,000 of these have been interviewed, and pretty much all of them said, yeah, we're going to maintain or increase the amount of working from home that's going to continue. You see on Twitter a lot, and we get it on LinkedIn when we say, where do you want to work from, office or work from home? There's a lot of people out there that really want the office back. They really want everyone in the city centre. And I don't see why, other than the fact that maybe their ego feels it's nice to have a sign above their door that says, look at my office, and they can come in and feel important, because they don't feel important anywhere else in life, particularly when they go home and their wife and their children just tread all over them and treat them like crap. So the office is the only place in which they are the king or queen of the world. And the fact is, it ain't going this way. And James has said this many times. Right now, it's hard as an employee, or perhaps someone looking for work, to pick and choose. It's a tough time to pick and choose. But there'll come back a time in which you can pick and choose, which is where we were before the pandemic. And I'm telling you, people will choose to go to companies that allow flexible working, work from home, WeWorks, and they won't want to get dragged into Albury every day to sit in a crap office via the M6. I'm telling you, and we need to do it, because there won't be a planet for your children to live in, you mugs, if you don't stop moving around so much. We've got to live a more modest life. And that means not traveling. It's dead easy. Why wouldn't you want to do it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Quite political this week, James. Quite political this week from me.
Very political.
Yeah. A lot of editing, I think we're going to be doing.
You are right there, Kyle. You know, like if you think about that kind of future that I talked about with that kind of 2030 flying drone, 3D printing pancakes, we're not going to be working in an office, are we? In that future, in 20 years' time, we're not going to be sat there working in an office. It seems really kind of inefficient. You'd probably, I don't know, I'm not a futurist, but you can kind of imagine that you'd have a designated area, maybe a multi-use whiteboard, touch screen interface, cameras, But yeah, the office isn't as important as what people think. I'm sat in my office today because we've had to come in and sterilise things. But other than that, I'm going home afterwards, and I think I'll probably get more work done on my couch than I will.
What's the plan for your office, Richard? Are you in there while you've got a lease, and are you going to renew it, or are you going to move out?
We're going to renew, I think, because now it's a different angle. But basically, a lot of what we do is about trust, and people, our customers feel more reassured if there's a physical place that they can come to, and there's an office. But to be honest with you, that's all it is. It's a place where we can be us, and I think Kyle hit it on the head. It's a place where I can be king. It's a place where I can kind of focus. I'm not getting like at work hassles. But yeah, I literally, I go home from this place. I do more work from the hours of 5 till 10 p.m. than I probably do sat here. I sit here, I firefight. We've got a team of people, and it's a case of keeping them on track. Keeping the morale high. That's pretty much what I do. And then I go home and do my work because I couldn't do it in the office. I really struggle with attention. I'm not going to say all like autism, but I'm somewhere on that spectrum. And when there's noise, when there's activity, I just cannot focus. I need to zone out, and I need to sit in private, really. So working from home, absolutely a big fan of. And we've got the technology to do it, right? Especially in our sector.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it for over a decade, and Carl's been doing it for at least 3 years now. Do you reckon, Carl? How long have you been with Kimberley IT? It's about 3 years.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years. Yeah, that's right.
Because I know you struggled at the start, Carl, didn't you? In that you thought I feel like I'm not doing anything working from home. Well, actually, you've done your stuff. That's why, because you haven't been distracted. You've been able to do it. You've been able to do what you were going to do a lot quicker.
Yeah. Well, I ran a technical department supporting Microsoft products across all companies. So yeah, I was reactive to say the least. Everything broke. So I felt guilty when I wasn't busy. Yeah. But it took about a year at least to unlearn that of guilt, of like having time to think, or go and get a cup of coffee, or go and have a run every day. Go and have a run. And I used to feel guilty about all that stuff. And I don't now, because James is right. I'm just more efficient, and I get done what needs to get done in a shorter time. Therefore, I have more free space. But the companies I'm talking about are, I'm looking at companies here that are professional services, law, accountancy, etc. They don't have to be in an office. I'm not talking about manufacturing, where you've got to have some element of people on site to do things. But these are companies that simply don't have to do this, and it's got to get done, and it's happening anyway. It's in the news. The change is coming. There's just the stalwarts out there that just need to take note. The change is happening, and you won't stop it. As Richard said earlier, the march of technology and progress is unstoppable throughout history. Just read your history books, people. This stuff doesn't change. The Luddites tried to have a pop. The trade union movement tried to have a pop in the 1840s and started from it, and they adjusted and changed things, but ultimately it's unstoppable.
It's the scale of it as well, and the speed. You know, when you see about Industrial Revolution, it was a very steady curve, and now the information age as well, it's just shotting up. And, you know, 10 years ago, we couldn't do the things that we take for granted now. And, you know, it's kind of, I'm looking forward to it. I'd go as far to say that I think we're quite lucky to be in this generation. We are going to be born of a generation where technology was just coming in, Segas and interesting things.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to die in a generation where medicine's being pushed to the absolute frontier, where we're starting to talk about space travel. There's probably going to be a person on Mars before I die, touch wood, hopefully.
Yep.
And that is just an amazing generation to be in. I think we're absolute travesty to just sit here and whinge about technology as that happens, you know, rather than embrace it. And for all his flaws, that's why I kind of like Elon Musk.
This is one of my.
But I like him.
This is one of my things that I find it quite unfair that a human has around about 80 to 100 years on this planet. I think I don't think he'd want to live forever, but I think a 200-year window would be nice, just to see how technology moves on over a 200-year window. I think that'd be a real nice length for a human life to be. Just out of interest, I just think 80 to 100 is too short, but 200 would be good. Yeah, good. You'd see 2 revolutions in 200.
I agree, because I like the idea of that. I will throw into the mix there something that's relevant now, is that I feel people should be allowed when to choose to end their lives. I believe assisted suicide should be allowed, and therefore you should be able to just choose when you want to finish. It's your choice.
That got dark really quickly.
I don't know if it is. It's that dark, to be honest. I don't think that's dark. I believe James has said that I wouldn't want to be infinite. But the likelihood is that if you follow the exponential curve, that would happen, that the potential would be that you could live forever in some electronic format. You could never end. And I don't think you'd want it never end. I don't think the human psyche is designed for never ending. It comes from the DNA of monkeys, so it's not going to happen. But the ability maybe to switch off at 165 just because I'm done, I'm out, and just go. You'd have to, because you can't wait to die. Because if you can't die, James, you've said this, there'll be people who will be immortal through physical and electronic controls.
Taking it to extreme, everyone's going to die, because we're getting really off tangent here, but the universe is going to die anyway. So unless you can escape the universe, you're a goner anyway.
He always says this. He always says eventually the universe goes into entropy and we're all going to go dark anyway, which is right. But you always use that as your get out. All right, move on to the next section. You've done the universe.
Something less nihilistic.
It's all about you now, Richard. This next section. So it's our conversation time and interview time. So I thought we'd start off. Let's just, how did you get, we at the start you mentioned what your business is and how it came about. So how did you actually get into security? Where did you come from to initially found the business with your partner?
There'll be a blog one day. There'll be a blog, and I will explain in absolute honesty and transparency how that happened. But for now, let's just say I was a mechanical engineer, like a mere plumber. And a complete change of life. I used to live in Australia, so I literally an Australian plumber, and something happened to my own life, and I just knew that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. It sounds proper cringe, and this isn't some pre-prepared speech or anything, but literally I had this calling, and I knew, talking about the whole purpose of life and the whole, how long we're going to live for, if I was on my deathbed at 100, I knew I would have no regrets devoting my life to technology and IT, security. Yeah. That's what I did. A bit of a traumatic time in my life, but completely changed to get into security. And then I did about it the same way I did like kind of anything else. It's where do we want to be as position Z? Where are we now? I'm an A, and just literally stacked in the A to Z's between that. So a good knowledge of IT, experience, hands-on testing, working as a novice, working my way up, and just kind of from very day one of the industry, I see it as nonsense. It's like it was us and them. I wanted to make an improvement of cybersecurity. So this was a very bold kind of decision. I literally wanted to give up my whole life, everything, and I wanted to do security. That's what I wanted to die for. And well, not die for, but you know what I mean? I wanted to devote my whole life to it. And then it just spiraled out. Spiraled out from there with kind of testing. I got a job at a very good company called Random Storm up in Wetherby as a very junior. I think I just completely kind of piled into the interview and just kind of give me a job. What qualifications have you got? None, but I'll learn. What experience have you got? None, but I'll learn. Did a practical test. I didn't sleep for about 3 days prior to the interview. So when the practical tests come up, I actually scored quite highly versus graduates and stuff. And I think I earned a punt. I think that's all I did. I earned a punt at that time. Very nice guy gave me a job, like in his team. And I just started learning. I went from, kind of finding out about the industry, literally never heard of InfoSec, cybersecurity, completely off my radar, to absolutely loving it and living it, just becoming my life. So for me, I think the big kind of changing point is I had a good idea of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to improve cybersecurity for the layman, for people in the street. And then I kind of started to learn about social engineering, where it seems to be the forefront. If you look at all the stats, it's the most common area of cybercrime, whether it in different guises, right? People knocking on the door with a fake ID, social engineering, a phishing email, social engineering, fake pension scam, again, So that's what I wanted to do, and that's kind of where I put all of my focus as well at that point. A bit like putting all your cards on one pile. It was literally all on the social engineering, and it trapped me well as well. I'll be honest. There's that expression, isn't there? Do what you kind of do what you enjoy, and you'll never work a day in your life. Or kind of what would you do if money was no object? I'd be doing this. I'd be doing what I do day in, day out. And in return, I think that's kind of, it's looked after me as a person. So, they love to paint the picture in the media about this kind of dark history, the ex-hacker that turned good. That wasn't me at all. I wasn't a criminal. I wasn't a hacker. I've never done a malicious cyber crimes, kind of stuff like that. But it's taught me a lot about being a person as well. Kind of like eternally grateful for. The whole conversation of ethics. I understood what ethics was 10 years ago, but actually bringing that into the workplace and little things like questioning, like, why am I eating meat? Let's become a vegetarian, because it seems right to do. The stats, it changes your whole life. That's probably what I'm grateful for the most. And yeah, kind of picking up some of these points as well before I go too far off tangent. But like red teams and blue teams, all this kind of terminology was kind of thrown at me. I'll be blunt, it's all nonsense, and I see it as nonsense and just distractions in the industry. Everyone wants to be on the red team because it's cool, and blue team's boring. Complete nonsense, really. And I just think, there's a lot of changes that I want to kind of bring to the industry, not just in my role, but we're constantly trying to change policy and make things a bit simpler. So I think the latest kind of addition to that string is sitting on the IASME board, so we can start to steer some of the policy changes and some of the overarching kind of efforts of bigger organisations. I'm not going to be able to do this all on my own, and I understood that from day one. So it's calling on the support of interested people. Yourself's a classic example of that. People that are doing good at what they do. You're securing businesses day in, day out. Is there anything we can add to that? And it's the same rinse and repeat with different companies, different partnerships, whether that's the police, yourselves, kind of what can we do to improve cybersecurity? And I think the whole industry has gone mad because of the money. I think they've just gone, right, multi-billion-pound industry, let's do this, right? Yeah. And we're just kind of rolling down that path now where no one's really questioning how we stop cybersecurity, like like how we stop cybercrime. Everyone's just focused on the money as we roll down the hill to the bottom.
It's one of the things that frustrates me in the IT support world. All these IT support companies are now promoting their cybersecurity experts and all this. And the fact of the matter is, actually, you don't need to do that much just to become significantly more secure in your business. Just simple things, as you know, like 2FA and using a security key rather than a text-based code and things like that. It's a lot of small things you can do that makes yourself just a nuisance enough that a hacker goes elsewhere. I'm not going to attack you because it's just a bit of a pain. You've got a good enough security that it's a pain. That's all you really need in a small business, medium-sized business, to send them elsewhere, because there's plenty of other businesses that haven't got it there. And these IT support companies will make it like, oh, you've got to do all this, you've got to get all this special stuff put in. Well, actually, you don't. You just need to be a bit more clever and train your guys up. And it's as simple as that. It's like last week we had a couple of emails come in from 123 registered end users. 123 reg is being phished at the moment. So it's coming from no reply at 123-reg.co.uk. And it was looked like it was originating from Japan, the actual email. Trying to get people to renew HTTPS certificates. And if you click on the link, it will take you elsewhere. But all the people who got it, because we've been training them up, they spotted it straight away. This is a dodgy email, and they contacted us and said, can you just double check that I'm right, that this email's not correct? And that was three users from three different clients that had the same email come through. And because it looked like that there was this phishing attack going on, we then emailed out the rest of our client end users, all our end users we look after, just to keep them aware. It's just small things like that that just absolutely massively improve your security, and you don't need to go into big, expensive, costly things to do it.
And where did they get the 123? It's on the Whois. That's a domain name to Whois. It's the only information available. So they put the two together, and then it looked like whoever was phishing wanted you to agree to authorization of an SSL certificate for the domain name. That's what that one looked like. I don't know what they were going to do with it afterwards.
I think it was just a renewal scam. Just get your credit and debit card details when you go through to renewal. You got hold of those and then just flog them somewhere.
It could have been, James. I didn't follow it down that path. And we all had another one as well, didn't we, where we had a direct phishing attack. Email sent to owner of an accountancy business. I'd like to do business with you. I've got these businesses. Can you talk to me? A couple of back and forths, and then they get sent a link. And of course, then the member of the team had saw it straight away, gone, I think this is a bit iffy. So we were, yeah, I think it is, but let's see.
That was a pure social engineering one. That was,
yes.
The first few emails seemed genuine enough, and they were just. It was some guy pretending to be a sole trader, and he was sending from a Gmail account. So you think, okay, he probably hasn't got his domain name registered and all that stuff. So they checked with us as soon as the email came through, and I went, okay, reply back to it, but don't be specific and don't give any personal details out if they start asking for them. And it was on their second email back that then they said, oh, I've uploaded a load of files to this Microsoft OneDrive. Can you click on it? And you go onto it, and it's a fake login page and all that kind of stuff. But
that's really interesting. Why they do that? And social engineering is becoming more and more prevalent for one simple reason: as technology becomes safer, because we've got more fail-safes, more technological preventions to all this kind of stuff. We're leaning on that, like on that human side more than ever. Just over the past 10 years, we've seen a massive change in how incoming mail's handled. So if you have never corresponded with a domain and you just ping in a phishing link, it's probably going to end up in the spam folder. You've got all kinds of preventions. Gmail are the worst or the best, whichever way you look at it. Worst for you guys. And what they do is they build up that conversation back and forth. So a nice kind of benign email goes in, you get a response, you send a nice benign response back, they respond, then a link. And that process there, it's just cheating Google's algorithm to make it seem less suspicious.
Yep.
And it might not do some of the stuff it does. So always thinking out there kind of ways. And the 123 one, the crux of that could have been getting access to the registrar. Obviously, if you've got access to the root of that registrar, you can then change domain settings, forward mail, set MX records to different areas. They are always thinking of different avenues. And you see biggest companies like Tesla a couple of years ago, they got hit very similar domain scam. They're after the registrar. Once they had access to the registrar, they can let themselves in. That's the pinnacle of access, really, for a social engineer, if you get access to the registrar.
What's the best social engineering that you've seen, you've experienced? One that stands out from the others. It's just like they've put a lot of thought into that, and the attackers have done a good job there.
The best social engineering attack in the wild.
Yeah, that you've experienced.
That we've experienced,
or someone you know has experienced. That you've had some involvement in. Maybe.
Honestly, we have had so many kind of involvements, and it's really tough to pick one over the other. I'm going to go to one that I really love as a personal thing, right? And it's an interesting story. So, notorious fraudster gets jailed. I think it was Wandsworth Prison. And he smuggles a mobile phone in. So he's got a mobile phone, he's in jail. Yeah. Interesting story. In between the lines, it's just scattered with randomness and just strangeness, but beautiful in the end what he does. So he is in love with a transvestite woman on the outside, a transvestite man woman, and he's in a jail cell, and there's only one thing separating him from his love whilst he's in this jail cell, and it's obviously the whole being detained thing. So he jumps on, registers a fake domain to the Courts and Tribunal Service, and he sends an email in to the prison explaining that he's been paroled, basically, or he's to be released. The next day he gets released. He goes and has a wonderful 24 hours with this person, and hands himself back in. And I love that because it's a magical story that you don't see, and it's he's probably understood the ethics, he's understood that he has to go back in, but he's got the power to just decide whether it's jail or freedom, and then the cleverness to decide I'll go back to jail because that's going to impact on my freedom. And stories like that in the wild, absolute, we waste too much time on the script kiddies, and the low-level phishing attacks. There's also another guy as well. Basically, he scammed Barclays, and he built a contraption. So the characters within social engineering are just wonderful sometimes. So the guy, like in prison, that's one story. Second one was a chap that he, absolutely crazy story, but he pioneered acid house in the in the UK. Yep. Was his complete scene, very well known in that industry. But almost in his later career, he built a contraption to defraud primarily Barclays customers and Barclays themselves. And the contraption, I wish I could show you. It always takes me some time to find, but literally the contraption is just wonderful. It's just radios with a chip and pin, like a chip and pin device, just kind of put up there. Acid house fraudster. I'm going to type into Google. It's literally, if you type in Google acid house fraudster, you'll find the chap. Like a former rave organizer who was dubbed King of Acid House in the 1980s, later turned to fraud. And there's a picture of his device on a Daily Mail article. Right? Yeah. So you can see the passion and the character that's done this, yeah? The little things like having the little chip and pin device and the aerials for the background noise. He's got a little CB system and, all this kind of setup. And it's variable as well. You can just pick it up and it's portable. Love that.
Access bank accounts, wasn't it, from victims? That's what it's saying.
So for me, I'm sure if you looked at it from a technical perspective, I'm sure I'm supposed to say, when a distributed bunch of hackers took over the Swift network or something, I'm supposed to say that. But this is where this is actually the kind of my favourite kind of stories, where just a little old humble person with some good skills and some good kind of attention to detail is able to take millions out of a high street bank. I think that's what social engineering is.
Have you seen any changes in the attack since people are now locked down and they're not working in their offices? Has there been any changes taking place?
Yeah, I think just being distributed is the number one kind of help. Really, it's brilliant for us. And social engineering at its very crux it relies on people being helpful, but also
being on the road.
We all have these kind of human traits, don't we? Where we don't want to seem stupid. We don't want to be, like in a meeting, we don't want to be the stupid person who asks the question that nobody understands. And it's a case of like, when people are remotely working, they're sat in the house, they get an email, they don't want to be the person who puts it in the group Slack, or that, you know, they don't want to raise the alarm. We're all so polite and British, aren't we, that we just rather sit there and be, you know, kind of become a victim rather than just raise his hand and chance it that someone might know that we don't know everything, you know, like that. But we are seeing a complete wave change of just social engineering attacks and styles. But literally, this is what I love about this industry. You know, you can have a Icelandic volcano kind of erupt, and hours later, all of the scams are all changed around. Oh, I'm stuck in Iceland. I'm stuck in an airport, and the whole pandemic, like kind of as a whole, has been the perfect story, right? Test and trace. We did an article where we registered a domain which was just one hyphen different to the government's link they were sending out.
Okay, yeah.
So I think it was like test and trace, you know, -gov.uk. But it just shows you kind of with a good pretext and a good kind of topical kind of event, they can run riot with it. And it's really, you know, I've seen people without morals for a few years, right? But it's not until people like literally dying mid-pandemic and they're still hammering up the COVID scams that you kind of think, Jesus, I never knew the low was that far down, you know? I never knew the bottom was that far down the pile of these people. But it just reminds you that there's no ethics, there's no moral compass with these people.
Yeah.
So I've seen I've seen cancer pretexts, I've seen COVID pretexts. There's just no bottom for these people. So if there's an opportunity, they will take it. And working from home, maybe a few phone calls away from the guy that looks after security, it's a big help to them. Now, we're kind of also in that time as well, where we've spent the last 10 years putting everything up in the cloud, and then we've told everyone to go home, so the cloud works, but the home infrastructure, the Wi-Fi networks, the kids playing games on the same Wi-Fi network, someone's random laptop on the same Wi-Fi network. We've not kept up with the infrastructure at home as well. So I'm sure you guys can relate to that the tech you put into a business isn't seen at home. So it's just an absolute minefield. You know, if you take a simple thing like hijacking a domestic router, so over the last few years we've seen quite an increase in attacks of just simple 0 days on common home routers that ISPs use. And again, this is at home, so if the worst happens, there's not really much the attacker can do. But now, big high street banks are sending their staff to work at home. So you hijack a home router and you've just got access to something else, right? Now, the clever ones are obviously going out to tech that they can bring home. A common one, I've seen a really good setup actually, where they're actually providing people a separate router with a VPN and a separate wireless hotspot for working at home. And literally, you can't go wrong. You just plug it into the back of any old router, give it internet, and it's safe for your work laptop. But so many companies are quite behind that, I think. So it's interesting, just the whole change of what we deem as security. And there's that term where we look at our barriers first. We look at what our perimeter fences are like, and when you literally working at home is outside of that perimeter fence in many a case. But yeah, thank God for the cloud, because imagine bringing your Exchange premise server home as well and kind of plugging that in and seeing what happens.
Yeah, imagine if this pandemic had been 15 years ago.
Yeah,
we would see economic devastation way above what we're seeing now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But it's just that reminder as well. We're working from home, and it isn't the fancy gadgets that we need to focus on. It's already been mentioned. This is the most frustrating thing of the whole security industry, right? The Holy Grail has just been discarded previously, like in the conversation. Two-factor, good passwords, password managers, staying alert on different domains, checking, just knowing that you can dissect a simple domain, knowing what a subdomain is. This is security, and we don't want to you know, we don't want to know because it's not sexy. We
How
want
do we get past this, Richard? Because our experience teaches James and I in the industry that nobody gives a shit. People do not care. They don't care. Like smokers didn't care about cancer till they got cancer, and then they went, "What can you do, doc? How can you stop it?" And you go, "We can't." Yourself up, didn't you, by smoking for 40 years? But the problem with IT now is people don't give a monkeys until it happens to them, and then they go, "What do we do?" And then you go, "Oh, right, well, you could do this, or you could do that." And then they go, "Oh, all right, fine. Does it work again?" "Yeah, it works." "All right, okay, don't care anymore now." And on it goes. It's never ending. Like sometimes I have zero sympathy when I see some ransomware attacks in the field at universities and stuff where people paid to do it. And I'm like, "I don't care. Bad luck, you should lose your job." I don't know, I'll rant again, but I always felt with people like back in the day, if they didn't have a backup and they were an IT manager and they lost the backup, lose your job, you're fired. You should be fired. That's your job, and you couldn't do it to get out of the game. You're not good enough.
It calls a spade a spade. I like
Yeah.
that. I think there's somewhere in between. I think one of the key areas. Look, we need to do something. You know, cybercrime is classed up there with terrorism. It's classed up there as a national problem, a national threat. It's a class 1 tiered problem. So, you know, we need to see that same kind of awareness. Now, I'm going to say something. I want you to hold your breath for 10 seconds, but security awareness. I don't mean, hey, I'm a password, set a good password, and a little song about passwords. I don't mean that at all. I mean teaching people, right. The biggest problem, I think, is decanting what the academics have already resolved into the minds of the layman, right? So I'll go as far to say there's not a cybersecurity problem that an academic somewhere, maybe it's in NASA's basement, maybe it's in some university hall, has resolved. Everything has been sorted. It's all fixed. We've got secure transport, we've got TLS, we've got, you know, changing standards, we've got NIST, we've got everything. It's all set there working beautifully, but not for the people that use technology. And I think that's the biggest barrier, that we need to stop being so fucking nerds. We need to stop nerding over the intricacies of passwords. Oh, the complexity is wrong. We need to just literally start to get this into the minds of people. And that is the biggest thing we can all do, whether it's as a tech company, whether it's, you know, looking after someone, but we need to make them aware, because we're currently at a state where, imagine, like, compare this to something we can relate to, like burglary or something, yeah? There's burglaries going off in the area all the time. And in fact, every house on the street is getting burgled once a year. So there's a big problem. But nobody knows, nobody's seen it. You know, we don't know that it's a big risk, so we just leave us doors unlocked and all the rest of it. We've not kind of been put in the room, and that massive discrepancy there, the risk that we all face from cybercrime, it's miscommunicated. And it's just literally, I'm not sure if it's just the kind of sector, the people in the sector, but they're very, very bad at decanting this information, right? Mrs. Jones doesn't care about your goddamn spreadsheet and your white paper about password management. They want a one-click solution. They want it built in, yeah? So we need to start taking it out of the hands of people a little bit as well. We need to start seeing default settings. You know, 1Password, for instance, a great tool, password manager. Let's get that bolted on to Chrome. Like, let's get, why doesn't Chrome support a kind of leading range of password managers? And when you install Chrome, you set up, press the 1Password button for 1Password, or press other if you want to put KeePass on. Yeah. But why do we now have it that you need a basic education course? And the concept of it, I cannot even explain properly, but we have to sell an awareness course, not even to sell the product. We have to design and sell an awareness course so people know about password managers. Because when you ask 100 people, 80% don't use a password manager, and they don't understand what it does and why the benefits, right? When you're asking people to well, Google stats are really kind of good, really, in a way, but Google released their study of how many people have different solutions, 2-factor, SMS, all the rest of it, yeah? And it's marginally over like over 10%. And you start to think, how many people have a Google Titan key You know, you can tie that in the Google Advanced Protection Program. So you've got Google on one side of the fence with their academics and the frameworks and the hardware keys and advanced protection programs. And you've got Mrs. Jones out there, or Mr. Jones sat there, never heard of any of all this, just sick of these hackers getting access to his bank. Massive disparity. And you could start 1,000 businesses in this area and you still have an industry to work in, because literally nobody seems to be doing it well. You know, we're not kind of like, I don't want to hold myself up on a pedestal and say, oh, but we do. I mean, like, we're a small team from Yorkshire. Are we doing it as good as the combined services of Microsoft and Google if they put their heads together? Probably not, you know. But we need to start getting the awareness out, and we need to make it so it becomes easier and just more natural, you know. So, like, imagine the scene then. Police officer knocks on the door and he says, by the way, there's been a lot of burglaries down your street. In fact, your house is the only one that hasn't been burgled in the past week, right? It's a really bad problem. That small change is then going to lead to a kind of not just a culture change, but a kind of habitual change. You're going to improve security yourself. You're going to leave that conversation on the doorstep and go and research good locks. And you're going to go and research, you know, common types of burglary and, you know, prevention CCTV systems and stuff. And it's all there for you and really simple. But we haven't got that in the cyber kind of area. And in fact, the police aren't knocking on the door. The police are buried under hundreds of, you know, frauds and cases as well.
And unfortunately, the police, they're good at handling traditional crime. But you talk to a police officer. So one of my best men at my wedding is a police officer. Hasn't got a clue about cybersecurity. He doesn't even implement it on his own account, like two-factor and stuff like that, and he just doesn't accept it or care. But if I talk about a bank robbery, then he's all over that. It doesn't happen anymore.
We've discussed this before, and you made a mention earlier in the podcast of bad password management is the new drunk driving.
Yep.
We need that feeling of shame. People need to feel the shame. If I drove my car out, parked it in a car park, didn't lock it, left the key in ignition and came back and it was stolen, and told the police officer, sorry, I'm car illiterate. I didn't realise I'm car illiterate, me. Can't use cars, you know.
Different generation.
Get my car back. No, dickhead, you've lost your car. I hear IT illiterate all my career. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. If you're IT illiterate, you should feel ashamed. If you don't know how to copy and paste, feel ashamed. You can't use Windows Explorer. Feel ashamed of yourself because you're thick and you need to get a grip and use these computers because it's part of our lives. I know everyone's going to hate me, James, but it's got to be said. People have got to get a grip.
It's not thickness. It's laziness.
Thanks,
people don't want to do it. It's easier not to do it.
It's right. I take that back. You're not silly. You're not stupid people, actually, because you are clever, because you can operate cars and you can do things. So you're not thick, but you feel that it doesn't matter and it's okay not to do it, and it isn't.
Like if we look back, if you just compared it to kind of literacy, if we look back at kind of government campaigns at high level, remember the Gremlins one? You know, get to the bottom of your Gremlins. You know, it's okay if you can't read and write and you're an adult. Don't feel embarrassed. It's all right. There's help here. You can go to an adult class. Government way on education, literacy classes, numeracy. Fantastic, right? Helping a lot of people. We're not getting to that stage yet. We're not at that stage, you know, where we're laying on the TV adverts about password security. Yeah. Do you not understand passwords? It's okay. You know, don't let your gremlins get to you. We're gonna solve it, right? We're nowhere near that. And if you think about campaigns that have worked, you know, like a really good one to compare it to is seatbelts, right? Seatbelts come out, people don't wear seatbelts. You know, we make it law, but still, you know, if you don't wear a seatbelt, it's fine. Then we hit them with the awareness pieces. If you have a crash, you're going to die. I'll tell you something. The little advert with a pizza on the front seat, and it splashes on the windscreen. Yeah. About car crashes gets people thinking. And then at Christmas, there's the whole drunk driving campaigns. Yeah. You might kill a child. Jesus. Now, I personally would never dream of drink driving, and I'm sure we all would as anyone with half a brain and as an adult, right? But what has come to that conclusion? Now we all agree, and I'm sure 99% of all driving adults would agree that drink driving is just irresponsible. It's terrible. It's the worst thing to do, right? But that wasn't overnight. There was a time where people had one for the road. You know? There was a time where it was kind of socially acceptable. And there was a time where I was probably a child, wasn't even thinking about driving, but there was a time where you could nip to your friends, have a bottle, I only had a bottle of wine, and have a slow drive home, right? A slow drive home, yeah? That was a thing not so long ago. And there's so many different changes, and now whether it's awareness pieces, whether it's security, whether it's laws, government, campaigning, there's so many changes behind the scenes that have led to that big culture change and the big shift in the right direction. When we look at cybercrime, what have we got? We've got action fraud with the little Twitter pieces. Brilliant. A couple of tweets will fix this. We've got companies like us, yeah? We're advanced in this, but what have we got? You know, we're not at national level. We're not setting policies for governments, you know, and this is the whole change in the industry that we're going to start to see over the next 10 years, where we're noticing it over this last year. Police are more interested. There's more collaborations coming with police that kind of we're involved with now, and we are seeing a slight change, but we're so far off that advert and that catch-up campaign to stop people drink driving or to stop people setting a bad password.
Well, I think with our end users, we're well, in our little micro world, that we're getting our end users more used to security, because we mandate like two-factor authentication, highly recommend password managers and stuff like that. And some will go, what do I need this for? And then we explain it. And I think now they've experienced two-step once on their account, that they're more likely to now put it on their own personal accounts because they see the benefits there.
Yeah, James, you've also used your analogy of the bouncer. We have a product that filters DNS for inappropriate sites and also for bots and dangerous sites. And sometimes someone will say, well, can you just let me access any site because I'm the boss and I just want to buy me whiskey from your customer or whatever. And we use the analogy of the bouncer, that the bouncer's on the door of the nightclub to keep the riffraff out. And yes, it's annoying when the bouncer questions you at the door or may ask who that person is, but actually it's for the benefit of the whole club because it stops the idiot getting in and causing a fight. And so the bouncer delays you for a moment, but actually is in the benefit of you in the end run. And that's James's analogy. And it works really well. People get it when you use that analogy. Okay, true. All right then. All right, I'll tell you next time I need a site that I need to go to. Because, you know, certain sites we do as duty of care, and we believe like gambling and pornography and alcohol are pretty much duty of care and shouldn't be in a workplace. But they can be if they've got a legitimate reason they want to buy a bottle of single malt or something for the customer. And the bouncer steps in at that point.
Yeah. That makes sense. You know, like, and you see people, don't you, like, but I need it. I'm powerful. I'm the boss. I need to go to this website and that website. And you kind of need a guy that goes, sir, look at yourself. You're in slippers. You know, you're not even dressed. You're not had a shave. You're not coming in. You know, you do need a bit of a sanity check from a bouncer. You're right.
And that the boss is irrelevant. You're leading the company. You don't get exemption. Yeah. You need to lead by example. And you're as high a risk as anybody else in the company.
So rounding up our interview with you, Richard, we've got some go through some quick fire questions, I guess. So,
oh Jesus, go on.
What is your favourite? I can see you on the notes there. What is your favourite item of technology you've ever owned? What's giving you the most enjoyment? Your mobile. Yeah, good choice.
Reason for it. I remember being a child at school, primary school at that. I remember saving up weeks of pocket money, washing cars, and I acquired a Sagem mobile phone, pre-SIM card, analog.
Yep.
And from that very moment, I could ring people. I could ring businesses. I could be an adult. I could. I was empowered from day one.
I
think we've lost a bit of that magic now as we peer into the doom scrolling of Twitter and Facebook, right? I think it's been hijacked a little bit by the advertising people. But still, I think the phone is the most undervalued piece of technology we've got. We've got a box in our pockets that you can find the answer to any question. You can contact any person, any business. You're equal in a cyber world in your pocket. And I think we don't think about this enough. So my favourite item of tech is a phone. It doesn't have to be a smartphone either. Nokia, big fan of the old yellow banana phones we've got in the office as well. So yeah, that's my favourite bit of tech ever.
Next question. How do you think technology would help you live better life than if you were born a century earlier?
Okay, I really didn't see that, but we've talked about it a bit before.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, it's probably a bit deep, but I'll skip through it really quickly. So a century ago, I'd have been born in a poor working class family. I'd have probably done the job that my father did. And a lot of my socioeconomic kind of constraints would have been set at a very early age, and you would have gone through life being one of them. Now, if your father was a factory worker or a farmer, and you didn't want to be a farmer as well, following that footsteps, you'd have been, everything's too good for him. He's one of them characters, right? But I think technology, what we don't talk about is the fact that it can empower and it can change people's lives completely. So for me, the point in time, a very early age as well, before I got into InfoSec, but the fact that I was always computer literate, I loved computers, and from the very first AOL dial-up disc, being able to get information in my brain, and it was awesome, right? You'd hear a teacher talking about something, you'd go home, you'd look online, you'd be in some forum somewhere, you'd go back to school the next day and you'd say, actually, 1963, that all changed, you know? And you were equal, and the fact that knowledge was spread in this way is still one of my favorite things about technology, that it can change where you are. If you want to be middle class, if you want to be helping, you can do, right? And technology can get you there from A to B, and it can educate you, it can teach you, it can nurture you at times, probably a bit deep, right? But we can all have meditation videos, we can, you know, it's everything, and you've got the guidance of people that come before you.
For example, like the internet, if the internet didn't exist, Kimberly IT would not exist, because I wouldn't be somebody who go around knocking on people's businesses' doors going, do you want IT support? I wouldn't be doing that. The internet has allowed me to do a business. Next one is, do you have any heroes or famous people that you admire or inspire you?
I did have one thing I've learned being a professional now.
Not Dido Harding, though.
Never meet your heroes, is what I want to say. I did have a few heroes in this industry. Once you meet them, don't ever meet your heroes, guys. Let it sit. My current heroes now are people just out there, the people that actually bloody care about security. And I see them through and through, and it's not kind of the rock stars, it's not the people on Twitter, it's not big CEOs of tech companies at all. It's people that are just kind of care about security. Yeah, and you meet, like, you're in a meeting with someone and they're like, well, we can't do that because we've got security and we really care about security, and you just go, oh my god, you're my hero, fucking awesome, you know, like really nice. So they're my heroes now.
If you're on a deserted island, what 3 bits of technology would you take with yourself? Would you have there with you?
For a start, it's just send a text.
You say your phone so you can get home.
That phone, number one.
Yeah.
Because let's make it optional, right? Second bits of technology that I would bring with me. Do you know what I wouldn't? I'd have a sat phone in a box, right? So my 3 pieces of tech would be a power supply, a battery backup, a waterproof case, Gorilla case or something like that, and a cutting edge sat phone. And what I'd do, I'll put the sat phone in the box, I'd bury the box on the island, and I'd just live a couple of months just eating fish and making fires on the beach. Then I'd just ring up for help. That's probably my 3 bits of tech. So yeah,
one of the best answers we had there.
Interesting. I couldn't miss out on just being on a deserted island with no tech. Do you know what I mean? That's the opportunity there, right? That's the $1 million prize. Like.
I think I'm going to have to change this question, Carl, for the next one. What tech would you take, but you've got no hope of ever going back to the real world?
Then I'd have full everything.
That would change everything. That would. Recommendations now. So I haven't really written one down, but I'm just going to say Pixel 4a. If you're looking for a new decent Android phone, Pixel 4a.
Yeah.
So next one is someone's put the Heist down. Who's the Heist?
Me.
That's a podcast. Go for it, Carl.
Podcast that turned up on my Audible. It's free. 6 episodes about some of the greatest heists in history, narrated by Michael Caine. It's a very good production, high quality production values, really interesting. Each episode is just under an hour, really enjoyable, not difficult, not hard to listen to. And then one of them is a great one, which Richard might like if he hasn't listened to this, which is the $150 million fax about a heist in Australia in which nobody broke into anything and it was all done by a fax machine. And it's good. It's got diamond heists, it's got bank robberies. It's good, and it's free. So have a listen. Michael Caine, fabulous. Love Michael Caine. His voice is so listenable. You just put him on and just go, this is good.
Next recommendation is First Man. Is that yours, Kyle?
Me again. Netflix watching in the evening. Movie about Neil Armstrong. It's a bit of an biography of Neil Armstrong and his mission, and it's fabulous. Ryan Gosling is fabulous as him. He is a steely-eyed missile man. That's what that dude was. And particularly the first part of the film in which you find him up in his X-15 plane bouncing off the Earth's atmosphere. And it's the only movie I've watched that gives you what I think is realistic about flying. The aircraft is rattling, the bolts are coming loose. Like, it is scary as hell.
It's interesting you say that, because I think it was on The Spectator. They had the 10 most realistic space films of all time. And the astronauts were saying that First Man is not very good because the actors aren't very excited about what they're doing, but also the aeroplane scene is completely incorrect. It doesn't rattle. It doesn't do anything like that at all. So while you enjoyed it, that was just for the atmosphere of the actual film.
Well, I always read after I've watched the movie. Then I read that they had a consultation from pilots and test pilots who said it was accurate.
Oh, well. There's a debate going on there then.
I don't want to get involved either. Jesus, it is a debate.
Official Secrets, is that who's recommending Official Secrets?
It's mine. It's a film. I won't say documentary because it's a film, right? It's a film based on a true story. But it's behind the scenes of a GCHQ operative that contested some of the activities prior to the kind of Iraq invasion. It was the Tony Blair golden days of WMDs. And it's quite a surreal film where you've kind of got a lot of trust in the film by the way it's portrayed and some of the facts you can look up yourself. And it's kind of, we were lied to as a nation and went to war because they lied. And great film for a start, great kind of, it's put together really well. But I liked it because it does also kind of hit home sometimes where it's us or them, and we want to be on, the us side of the fence. Definitely pro GCHQ government, and I'm not one of these kinds. But it does make you question where that barrier lies of doing what you're told for the better good, for the greater good, and what is damn well kind of illegal. So really good film. Also as well, I'm not sure if you've seen it, you probably have done, but kind of Ready Player One, because it starts to cut into that. I'm very passionate about the future, and I don't mean next week. I mean kind of 2030, how we're going to be living. And I think Ready Player One starts to tick off some of them concerns. VR headsets for everyone, traveling, being able to make contact a bit better. Really love. Should I crack in to the next one as well? Sorry.
We can do. And this is a bit of software called the Objective C suite of tools.
Let me explain it. Objective-C it's a bit of a project run by a guy called Patrick Wardle, absolute pioneer of kind of all things Mac security. Now, he's not selling everything. He's conducted himself very kind of ethically and properly. He takes sponsorships. So you might have seen Surfos, they feed into his project, Clean My Mac. Lots of common brands basically pay him to keep him, kind of coming up with these great ideas. And he has like a sponsor me pricing plan. That's amazing. Surfos are sponsoring him to improve. Long story short, Objective-C is a range of firewalls, hack detections, endpoint stuff that is absolutely worth its weight in gold, and it's free. It's free. So I don't know why that is free, but let's not question it too much. If you've got a Mac, if you care about security, get the Objective-C range of products.
Already bookmarked. I'm going to be looking through that later on today and trying some stuff out on my Mac. So bookmark that already. Just jumping in before we finish. On Reddit there is Today I Learned.
Yep.
Which is a good thing. Do you guys know what Sophos means?
Surfos?
Yes.
No, I don't know what it stands for.
I do not.
Well, when I'm running, I'm listening to my book at the moment, which is Greek civilization. I'm a nerd for that kind of history. It's sage or wisdom. It's a Greek word, and it means sage or wisdom. And that is the meaning of the word Sophos. Because I always thought, what a strange name for an antivirus product, Sophos. What's that on about? But obviously, it's learning, it's wisdom, it's the understanding, and that's where it came from. There you go.
There we go. That's your. We can add that as a feature to the podcast. Today I learned at the end.
Maybe we should, James. I follow that subreddit. It's a good subreddit, that one.
Well, today I've learned a lot about hacking and social engineering. So it's been very, very good.
Richard, you've been a great guest. I've learned loads as well, and and we're not exactly an audience that don't take an interest in this, but what you have done, Richard, I say, is you bring it across really well. You bring it across, as you said, in like layman's terms. I like that. There's an element of the Yorkshireman there that's going to make sure that happens. A Yorkshireness and communicating stuff sometimes goes well in hand, because you don't pull any punches up there. You tend to just tell it how it is.
Like I've been told, I've actually got a big contract a couple of years ago, and the main reason was the guy liked the cut of our jib. He literally put in an email, I like the cut of his jib, and that won us a contract. So, proof that there is money in just not being a knobhead and confusing people and overly complicating things. You can be call a spade, as it were, and get a lot across. So,
Richard, where can people go to find and get more of your cut of your jib from? Where can they go? Where's the best place? LinkedIn, Twitter?
So, we've got a website where we kind of run a blog. Our blog's a really good one. So the AntiSocialEngineer.com/blog. We try and we go for quality rather than just noise. Last couple of blogs is literally one where we found out we can hijack any any WeChat account outside of mainland China. So we could literally just do our magic and take people's WeChat accounts. We've got other stuff in there as well. We found flaws with kind of Twitter. We found flaws with kind of big systems, and test and trace has been one. Particular interest, I want to draw people's attention to one of the last blogs we've actually done, and it's Those That Forget the Past. It's a blog about basically how everything we're kind of doing, all this cutting edge Sophos, stuff, started in the 1970s with the whole industry kind of taking off. Some of the first pen tests were in the 1970s, and just get your head around that not a lot has changed. We're actually very bad, and I just want to push people towards that blog particular to think about how history can help us going forward as well.
I just added your blog to my RSS reader. So.
Okay, you'll be bombarded with stuff every couple of months. We don't blog every week, so
that's fine.
We've got something to talk about when we release something.
I got it on screen to read with my lunch later on. Yeah,
and
good.
You're on LinkedIn as well for people who are on LinkedIn to follow you.
We're very socially aware, so we have Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the rest of it, but varying degrees of quality. Twitter's tends to be just rants about stuff. LinkedIn's probably some of the more professional stuff, and the blog's kind of what we do as a business.
Very similar pattern to how we do it.
Yeah, if you get it all mixed up, it's a mess, right? If you're going all professional on Twitter, you're going to get laughed at. If you're going all joking on LinkedIn, you're going to get laughed at, right? No one wants to be laughed at, do this, though. You have to follow the rules and social conventions of social media.
Yeah, the rule is never appear on @crap on LinkedIn. That's my rule. I don't want to ever appear on @crap at LinkedIn when somebody's taken my post on LinkedIn and said, look at this idiot talking about stuff.
So that's a Twitter account called crap on LinkedIn. So
also on the state of LinkedIn, I think definitely.
Yeah, that's another one.
I mean, it's always the one where they're like, I went for a job interview and the guy was very rude, and the next day I was the boss and he was the.
There was one the other day, a place I was walking down the street for a job interview, and there was a dog in the road, and it had a thorn in its paw, and I stopped and I pulled the thorn out of the dog's foot. But when I got to the interview, I was late and I didn't get the job. The next day, they phoned me back. I went in and I walked in the room, and it was the CEO. It was the dog.
It was the dog. Oh my God. 10,000 likes, 3,000 readers.
Someone did a piss take, and it was like, that is good. That is good.
It's LinkedIn, though, isn't it? I think people, they're trying. Yeah, they just try and act differently, and they shouldn't do. I guess I found a lot of success just in being natural. in just, when we try all our pre-prepared correspondence, it's very unnatural. It doesn't do well. When you just put on LinkedIn, do you know what? I'm sick of this because of, it actually does really well. So there's a strange irony in there that actually LinkedIn's rewarding more organic people. So yeah, little tip there for free.
That's your LinkedIn tip, and round up the podcast now. So thanks for joining us, Richard.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Kyle. Don't forget everyone to subscribe and like this video and the podcast when it comes out shortly.
Tag us in, put us a little @ on LinkedIn so I can find.
Of course we will. Of course we will. You're a star.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys for having me as well. It's been really informative, and I've liked your style of podcast as well.
Brilliant. Hopefully you'll be our next subscriber then, if you aren't already.
I will go. I'll work in the numbers. See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.